And hello and welcome to Arts and Entertainment. I'm Deborah Gilbert, your host, and as always, it's so great to have you. Thank you for tuning in, and I hope you enjoy another wonderful show. Well, we're going to highlight Susan Kerner today, and she co-produced a film called Ava's Promise back in 2022. But I know that you want to know all about it. One of the reasons she's here, besides sharing her life with us, which will be great, she taught at Montclair State University for 24 years as a stage director and theater professor. She's also a producer, and so she brings a lot of wonderful things for us to learn about today. And Susan, so nice to have you. Thank you for making the trip.
Well, thank you very much for having me.
It's nice to have you. Yes. Well, like I said before we started taping, I'd like to introduce the guest to the viewer before we start talking about everything else. So why don't you take some time and let us get to know you. Take us back into your history.
All right. Well, I grew up in Connecticut. I went to North Haven High School, grew up in North Haven, and went to Connecticut College, graduated from Connecticut College. But most of my career, most of my work has been, I've been a New Jersey and New York based stage director and theater professor. I worked for 10 years as education director and a resident director at George Street Playhouse in New Brunswick, New Jersey. Did that, and then moved on to be a professor at Montclair State University for 24 years. And while I was doing that, I did a lot of freelance directing and teaching. And one of the things that I loved most about teaching, as well as the directing part of it, was taking students abroad. So I did a lot of teaching and directing abroad in the UK, in China, Korea, Austria,
wow.
Italy.
Wonderful.
Yeah, so I did a great deal of that. I every year took students to London to see London theater. So I did that for a few different universities.
Theater you're mentioning as part of your background. Are you doing anything in theater now? Was that your passion as you were growing up?
Yes, it was. Actually, I started in theater when I was 8 as a kid in a Yale Drama School production.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And at that time, I asked my mother to get me acting lessons, and so we had acting lessons in my basement when I was 8, and then continued.
Did you think you would be an actor performing?
I did, and I did that at Connecticut College a bit, but in graduate school I realized that there were others much better than I was, and but what I did best with was directing and teaching. So I did that.
Are you teaching anymore?
I'm not. I retired from, I stayed on Zoom for the first 2 years that we moved back to Connecticut. And I'll tell you about that. So I taught on Zoom for a couple of years during the pandemic.
Oh, yeah.
At Montclair State, but from Connecticut. And haven't taught since, but I would like to. And I'd like to keep teaching.
How is it to teach on Zoom? I've always wondered how everybody does it.
I had to teach and direct on Zoom for a couple of years. It's not fun. It's much better to be in person.
Yes,
so,
yes. Well, one of the reasons you're here is Ava's Promise.
Yeah.
And probably a lot of viewers are saying, I have no idea what that is, but I'm interested in learning. Why don't you tell us about it?
Yeah. Well, in addition to the work that I did in teaching and directing, I think really the most significant and important to me collaboration that I've had was with Eva Schloss. It lasted for 30 years. We met in 1995 when I was working at George Street Playhouse in New Jersey, and I'll tell you about that. And until we had a friendship and collaboration until she died in January, this January, on January 3rd, she was 96.
And how did you meet her? What is her background?
So she was born in Austria, in Vienna. Her family escaped. It was a Jewish family. She and her brother and her parents escaped. I'm just going to grab a little bit of water. To Amsterdam, where they lived actually across the street, sort of from Frank family, from Anne Frank's family.
Fascinating.
They had left Germany and moved to Amsterdam. Eva, in 1940, when the Nazis invaded Holland, their life began to change. And in 1942, Eva and her parents and her brother went into hiding. And they were in hiding from 1942 until they were captured on Eva's 15th birthday in 1944. And while they were in hiding, and this is what the film is about, but we'll get back to how I met Eva, her father and brother were in one place, and Eva and her mother in another, because families couldn't usually keep 4 people. Her father and brother, during the time they were in hiding, became very good painters. Their form of resistance, really, and survival during that time was to paint. And Heinz, the brother who was 3 years older than Eva, also became a poet. So that is very much part of the story. But the way that I met Eva was that in 1994, I directed a production of The Diary of Anne Frank at George Street Playhouse. And as part of my research on that production, I went to Amsterdam and talked with them about the diary and about, I wanted to absorb something of Anne Frank's life. And they told me that Anne Frank's boyfriend, before she went into hiding when she was 13, was living in New Jersey. His name is Ed Silverberg, and that I should look him up, and maybe he would help me with my production of The Diary of Anne Frank, which he did. He had also been in hiding during the war, but eventually moved to the United States and had his family here. And he came in and talked with the cast of The Diary of Anne Frank, and it was the first time he had really spoken about his relationship with Anne.
Wow.
Which was amazing. And after that production, I was approached by young audiences of New Jersey that toured schools with plays to see if I would commission a playwright to write a piece that involved Anne Frank but wouldn't be the Diary of Anne Frank, that could go around to schools. And I knew that so much had been written about Anne Frank, and I went into the Anne Frank Center in New York and said, what can I say in this touring production, in this play about Anne Frank that hasn't been said before? And they said, well, why don't you focus it on friends of Anne Frank, or people who are connected to Anne Frank who survived. So I chose 2 people. One was Ed Silverberg, her boyfriend, who I already knew. And I asked the Anne Frank Center, who else could I put in there? I wanted, because Ed had been in hiding, was a boy who had been in hiding throughout the war. I wanted a contrast. So I wanted a woman and somebody who had been in a concentration camp, which Anne had not, but Anne Frank obviously had. And she introduced me to Eva. And Eva's connection to Anne Frank is that she, after the war, what happened is that the family was captured on Eva's 15th birthday. Even though they were living in different places, they had followed, the Nazis had followed, the Gestapo had followed Eva and her mother when they visited the father and brother, which was a very risky thing to do. So they knew where both families were. And they arrested both on May 11th, 1944. And on the train, on the way to Auschwitz, Heinz said, if you survive and I don't, I want you to find the paintings that he and his father hid under the floorboards of one of the places where they were in hiding, and share them with the world.
Well, we are close to taking a break. Why don't we take a break now, and then we'll come back and show the pictures.
Okay.
Okay.
Great.
I'm Deborah Gilbert. You're tuned in to Arts and Entertainment. We are going to take a break, and we'll be right back.
Dad?
Just 1 minute, okay?
Hey, Bobo, do trees tell each other stories?
I'm sorry. I'm afraid I don't know that.
Hey, Why don't we go find out? Listen.
Do clouds take naps?
I couldn't tell you.
Can birds draw pictures?
I don't have an answer for that.
Dad, do stars visit their friends?
Look!
And welcome back to Arts and Entertainment. I'm Deborah Gilbert, your host, and as always, it's so great to have you. Well, Susan Kerner is here, and we're talking about Ava's Promise, and I know that you'll continue to get to hear what that's all about, and it's just a wonderful show, so I hope you're enjoying it. And it's Eva. Should I say Eva?
Yeah, she was originally Ava, but most people know her as Eva.
I get confused. I see EVA and I say Ava, and
It's
we'll
both.
it's both. Okay, Emily, if we could start showing the pictures, that would be great, and then I'll have you talk about them as we see
Sure,
them.
that'd be great.
Okay, what are we seeing here?
So this is the production of The Diary of Anne Frank that I did in 1994 at George Street Playhouse, and that's how I got involved with the whole story, the whole Anne Frank piece. And this is kind of interesting because the woman who played Mrs. Frank, who's on the left, her name is Bibi Besh. She died several years ago, but her mother played the original Mrs. Frank on Broadway.
Wow.
She was the original Mrs. Frank production. She had been from Germany. But this is so that was the beginning of this story, doing this production. So this is a wonderful photo of Eva and Heinz and Eva's mother, Fritzi. And I can't remember if I told you this already, but the connection to Anne Frank is that after the war, Fritzi married Anne Frank's father. Did we say that already?
Well, I remember that when I watched the movie, so
Yeah.
I'm glad you're mentioning it now.
But so this is before the war. This is in Amsterdam when they had just moved there.
Okay.
And this is Eva and Heinz, a little bit older, I believe just before they went into hiding. And she would have been about 13 and he about 15. And he was an extraordinary young man. He was a wonderful musician. He played the guitar and accordion. Of course, when he went into hiding, he had to be completely silent. So he had to stop being a musician, and that's when he took up painting and writing poetry. So this is a production of, and then they came for me, Remembering the World of Anne Frank. It's been performed all over the world and is still has performances going on all over the world. And I directed I've directed 10 productions of it. This was a 20th anniversary production that happened. This was at the Museum of Jewish Heritage in New York City, where we did it, and also we did a production in New Jersey as well. So yes, and this is another photo of the production. And Then They Came for Me is about Eva's family and about Ed Silverberg's family. This is Ed at 12.
Okay.
And the actors who played his family. It was important to me even then to cast it. I've always cast it with a multiracial cast, which has really been helpful to audiences to identify with these characters. The original Anne Frank in my first production was from Vietnam.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So this is the film. And I should really tell you how we decided to do the film. Eva and I continued to stay in touch. The play started to get done all over the world. She sold her antique shop in London and became a full-time Holocaust educator, traveling all over the world to speak. and many times at question and answers at productions of this play, and I would meet her there sometimes. So we got to know each other well. Also because I did so much teaching in London, she would come with me to the plays, which is great. So during the pandemic, and also I want to mention it was during the pandemic that I moved back to Connecticut. This is a little bit of a side thing, but my husband and I wanted to find a grandchild magnet. Between us, we have 5 children and 9 grandchildren. And so during the pandemic, we left New York City and found a house on the beach, and it's worked as a grandchild. So during the pandemic, I worked with Eva and a friend of hers, a playwright in Minnesota, Claudia Haas, on a play about Heinz called My Brother's Gift. I directed Zoom readings of that play. And while we were working on that, I realized Heinz's story should be a film. It should get out to more people than a play might. So I approached my friend. Let's go back a little bit. That is Steve McCarthy, the director, and that's Kenny Spooner, who is one of the cameramen. This film is in Eva's apartment, and this is when we did some additional filming in 2023. The film opened in 2022, but we went back and filmed more people in it, and this is her apartment. Steve, who's a wonderful Emmy Award-winning director who happened to be teaching at Montclair State University, was a colleague of mine and a good friend. And I went to him, and he's done some wonderful documentaries, and he was very interested. He'd always wanted to film a Holocaust survivor, and so he agreed to do it.
Great.
And this is one of the early, Heinz did, there are 30-something paintings that he and his father did that have survived because they were hidden under the floorboards of an attic. Eva found them. She did go back and find them. They're now at the museum, the Dutch Resistance Museum in Amsterdam. All of the paintings and the poetry and the notebooks of drawings are all there. So he started with still lifes and then moved on to figures. And this was not set in the attic where they were hiding. It was an imagined space, but it shows that it was wearing on him being in hiding, and he was depressed.
Sure, I believe it.
And that came out.
That's a nice one.
This is after the film came out. It's played, by the way. We've showed it all over the United States, in universities, in museums, in synagogues, in theaters, and in Europe. It's been in Amsterdam, London, Slovenia, the Czech Republic. So it's been all over. And it was very exciting. This is when we're celebrating the opening of the film.
Lovely.
And that is a copy of a painting that Eva's father, Eric, did, The Woman Behind, by memory. All their paintings were from memory. They had nothing.
Wow.
Except the paintbrushes and the
Sure.
canvas. And so they painted by memory, and that is Fritzi, Eva's mother. That's a copy.
Beautiful.
Of that painting. And so that's Steve McCarthy, the director, and we've traveled all over the country doing screenings and to London and Amsterdam as well, doing screenings and talkbacks. And this was at the Ronald Reagan Presidential Library in California. So that was one of our talkbacks. There's Steve. And this was when we opened the film in London. This is January 2023. The film that you saw had more added to it afterwards, but this was the opening, and that's Eva at the opening, and Steve and me in London. So, and this. So Eva's grandson, Eric, who's in the film, actually, as you know, but the audience doesn't, I'm in the film too, which was sort of a late development that Steve asked me if I because I knew Eva and her family so well if I would be one of the storytellers in the film. So I am. And Eva's grandson, Eric, named after Eva's father, is in the film too. And he came when we did a screening at the Museum of Jewish Heritage and did a Q&A. We brought him over to London, and he wrote this beautiful poem. Should I read it?
No, we don't have enough time to do that.
Okay. Okay.
We'll leave us at the audience and see it.
Okay.
Emily, if you could put up on the screen the website address. Let's talk about evaspromise.com. What will
Sure.
the viewer find when they go there?
Well, they'll find our contact information. So they'll find out how to get a screening and a Q&A. Steve and I both love doing them, and we'll travel or we'll do them by Zoom. But they'll also find a lot of history, a lot of photographs, a lot of history, many articles, some bits of film. So there's quite a bit on there.
Good. That's evaspromise.com. evaspromise.com.
Yeah.
Here we are in July of 2026. What are your hopes as you start to get into the fall and the winter and into next year for the film or for any work that you're doing?
For asking. Yeah. Well, for the film, what our goal is, and has always been and hasn't quite happened yet, is to get it into schools, to get the film into schools. We know that it's appropriate because we've tried it for 5th grade and up. So it's great for middle schools and high schools. Universities are doing it, but it's a really good film. It's a gentle film. It's not a Holocaust film that has atrocities in it. And if anybody is interested, if they're teachers or administrators who are interested, I'll send them a copy of the film and they can view it. But the other thing that's wonderful for me is that I'm starting to write a book, a collection of Heinz and Eric's paintings and poems, but putting them in their cultural and historical context. And one of my collaborators also, just a total coincidence that I met him. I met him because I bought his book at the Book Barn in Niantic. It's called Anne Frank and After. His name is Rolf Wolfswinger, and he's Dutch. And I read his book and thought, I wonder if I could find, it was written in 1996, if I can find the author of this book who could maybe help me with my book. And it turned out that he lived in Old Lyme.
Oh my goodness,
yeah,
what a small
I had no
world.
idea. So we met yesterday and we're starting to think about how to surround the paintings and poems in the book with historical context. So we're talking to art historians and historians.
Has the film been well received?
Very well received. Very well received. People are, and it's interesting, adults receive it often in a very emotional way, especially if they have some connection to World War II and the Holocaust. Children receive it with a tremendous amount of curiosity about the time. They usually don't know anything about the period. So they're very curious and want to learn more. And Eva's message is one of hope and resilience and courage, and a very important message for our time, too.
Okay, we are slowly starting to run out of time.
Okay.
Any closing thoughts for the viewer that you would like to leave them with?
Well, it's been an honor to me to talk about Eva, to be with you. Eva completely changed my life, and I like to think that I had an important impact on her life as well. And it's just, it's an honor to be here and talk about her.
Good. Well, we're thrilled to have you. It's been very interesting.
Thank you.
We don't
Thanks,
really
Deborah.
talk about that time in history on this show, and so I know my viewer will love that.
Oh, thank you.
So thank you for
very
being
much.
here today.
Very much appreciated.
Okay. Well, I'm Deborah Gilbert. You've been tuned in to Arts and Entertainment. In case you need to reach me, I'm at dgilbert777@hotmail.com. Well, I hope you have a super day today. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you have enjoyed the show. I'll see you next time.